In the brutal crucible of World War II, a new kind of terror emerged on the high seas. Imagine standing on the deck of your mighty warship, scanning the distant horizon, and spotting an enemy vessel so far away that logic dictates you are untouchable. Then, the impossible happens. A weapon so far beyond anything known to naval warfare ignites the horizon, raining down destruction from an invisible hand. This is the story of a technological leap that broke the spirit of an entire navy, forcing them to confront a crushing question that haunted their every waking moment. What kind of gun is that? It was October of 1944, the Philippine Sea simmering under a tense sky. A Japanese naval officer, his heart thrumming with the adrenaline of battle, lifted his binoculars. 4 colossal silhouettes emerged from the haze: American Iowa class battleships. He quickly calculated the distance, a comforting 23 miles. Beyond our reach, he thought, a wave of profound relief washing over him. "Captain," he announced, his voice steadying, "we are safe. They cannot possibly touch us from here." The captain, a man weathered by countless battles, nodded in agreement. 23 miles. No naval gun in history could fire that far with any semblance of accuracy. Then, the horizon erupted. Massive, blinding orange flashes tore through the dawn. A thunder, deep and primal, rolled across the water, vibrating through the ship's very keel. The officer counted, his breath catching in his throat. 1, 2, 3. 40 agonizing seconds dragged by. Then, the ocean around his vessel exploded. Columns of liquid fury, geysers of white spray towering 200 feet high, dwarfed his ship like toys. His binoculars clattered to the deck, his voice a fractured whisper, imbued with a chilling dread. What kind of gun is that? That was the terrifying debut of the Iowa-class battleship, the most potent warship America had ever conceived. A colossal entity 687 feet long, 57,000 tons of raw steel, crewed by 700 dedicated souls. But for the Japanese, her sheer scale was secondary. What truly haunted their admirals' dreams, what instilled a creeping fear in the hearts of every sailor, were the guns. 9 magnificent 16-inch naval rifles, each barrel a monstrous 66 feet in length, each projectile a 700-pound harbinger of high explosive, heavier than a small car, capable of ripping through 18 inches of reinforced steel plate. And the propellant, a staggering 660 pounds of powder per shell. When an Iowa unleashed a full broadside, the ship itself would lurch violently sideways, moving several feet through the water from the sheer, raw power of the recoil. Sailors below deck would swear it felt as though the ship had slammed into an unseen reef. But the true innovation, the aspect that defied all conventional wisdom, was the mind-boggling range: 24 miles. 24 miles of pinpoint, devastating fire. The Imperial Japanese Navy possessed nothing, absolutely nothing, that could come close to matching that destructive reach. The real genius, the secret weapon, was accuracy at impossible distances. Naval gunnery faced an inherent paradox. At 10 miles, you could see your target, adjust your fire, hope to land a hit. But at 20 miles, you were firing over the horizon, blindly arsing massive shells, praying they landed somewhere near your target. Every navy in the world struggled with this fundamental limitation. Long range inevitably meant crippling inaccuracy. But American naval engineers, driven by relentless innovation, had developed something truly revolutionary. It was called the Mark 38 Fire Control System. A marvel of its age, these analog computers and mechanical calculators devoured every conceivable data point: ship speed, target speed, wind direction, wind speed, air temperature, the very rotation of the Earth, even the minute wear on the gun barrels from previous shots. Every variable, every nuance of their world, was fed into these mechanical brains, churning out a firing solution with uncanny, almost supernatural, precision. The guns would then hit targets the crew couldn't even visually detect. Japanese intelligence, having meticulously studied captured documents pertaining to these systems, had come to a stark, dismissive conclusion: impossible. Such an unparalleled level of accuracy at extreme range, they declared, violates the fundamental laws of naval warfare. They were about to receive a brutal, unforgettable lesson that American engineers cared little for their laws. On October 24, 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf exploded into history, the largest naval battle ever fought. 200 ships, thousands of aircraft, all locked in a titanic struggle that would decide the fate of the Philippines. The Japanese combined fleet, desperate, launched a colossal gamble split into three forces. They aimed to attack the American landing force from multiple directions. Admiral Kurita commanded the crucial center 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, dozens of destroyers. His mission was clear: breakthrough, annihilate the vulnerable American transports and their escorts. Standing in his path were just 2 American battleships, the legendary USS Iowa and the formidable USS New Jersey. Kurita, poring over his intelligence reports, knew the Iowa-class ships were fast, heavily armored, and lethally dangerous in close quarters. But he had a plan. His fleet, he believed, would engage from maximum range, leveraging their superior numbers to overwhelm the Americans. His own flagship, the mighty battleship Yamato, boasted 18-inch guns, larger than anything the Americans possessed. Kurita entered the battle convinced he held the decisive advantage. He was tragically, fundamentally wrong. The battle ignited at dawn. Kurita's fleet advanced, brimming with a dangerous confidence. Then, at a shocking 22 miles, the Iowa unleashed her fury. The Japanese fleet watched, paralyzed as the distant horizon erupted in fire. And then they waited. 40 agonizing seconds passed, the shells screaming through the void. Kurita's flagship, the colossal Yamato, shuddered violently. A massive geyser, a column of liquid fury, erupted a mere 50 yards off her port bow, a chillingly precise near miss. Then another, and another. At 22 miles, the Americans weren't just firing. They were bracketing his flagship with terrifying surgical precision. Kurita's strategic confidence shattered like glass. His own guns, the fabled 18-inch rifles of the Yamato, while boasting a theoretical maximum range of 26 miles, were notoriously inaccurate at such distances, fortunate to even hit the correct hemisphere of the ocean. Yet, the Americans, from beyond the horizon, were placing shells within 50 yards of his ship. In that moment of profound, shattering revelation, Kurita made a decision that would haunt him forever. He ordered a full retreat. His entire center force, 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, turned away, their massive hulls churning the water, running from just 2 American battleships. His officers protested fiercely, arguing their numerical superiority, their overwhelming firepower. But Kurita, his face grim, simply pointed to yet another geyser, this one a mere 30 yards away. He shook his head slowly, his voice heavy with despair, speaking a truth that cut deeper than any shell. They can hit us. We cannot hit them. We are sailing into a slaughter. The retreat, born of terror, saved his fleet from total annihilation, but it cost Japan the battle. And ultimately, the war in the Pacific. All because of guns that could reach farther, with accuracy, than seemed humanly possible. Leyte Gulf wasn't an isolated incident. The Iowa's guns routinely terrorized the Japanese. In February 1944 in the Marshall Islands, Japanese shore batteries, heavily fortified concrete bunkers, and artillery positions dug deep into coral rock, formed a seemingly impenetrable defense. American Marines desperately needed those positions obliterated before their landing. The Iowa was assigned the daunting task of shore bombardment. Japanese gunners watched the massive battleship approach, unconcerned. Their bunkers, they boasted, were invulnerable, built with 3 feet of reinforced concrete, designed by German engineers before the war. The Iowa halted 18 miles offshore, a distance well beyond the pitiful range of the shore batteries. The Japanese commander allowed himself a grim, confident smile. "They cannot possibly touch us from there," he declared. Slowly, with an almost deliberate menace, the Iowa's gargantuan main battery began to traverse and elevate, the colossal barrels pointing towards the heavens. Then, with a series of concussive roars that shook the very air, they fired. The Japanese commander watched through his periscope, seeing nothing but clear skies, no incoming shells. He checked his watch. 30 seconds more, then 40. Still nothing. Then, without warning, the first bunker vaporized. Not merely damaged, not simply cracked, utterly disintegrated. A 700-pound armor-piercing shell, plunging at unimaginable terminal velocity, had ripped through 3 feet of reinforced concrete as if it were tissue paper. The bunker, and every soul inside, simply ceased to exist in a flash. The commander stared, his mind reeling. That bunker had been 2 miles inland. The battleship 18 miles offshore. That meant the shell had traveled 20 miles, struck a stationary target, and penetrated 3 feet of concrete. Impossible, he whispered, a desperate plea for reason in a world gone mad. Then the second bunker exploded. Then the third. One after another, methodically, precisely, unstoppably. The Japanese shore batteries were completely helpless. The Iowa was beyond their reach, a ghost in the machine. All they could do was watch and die. Survivors of the bombardment, found days later, were shell-shocked, utterly traumatized. American interrogators asked them about their defenses, why they hadn't fought harder. One prisoner, his eyes vacant, simply laughed, a broken, hollow sound that echoed with unspeakable horror. Fight, he rasped. Fight what? We never even saw the ship. Just explosions. From nowhere. Our bunkers, our guns, our ammunition, everything just gone. He paused, looking at the interrogator with a profound, terrifying question. What kind of gun can do that? The psychological impact was utterly devastating. Japanese naval doctrine, built around the glorious battleship, the decisive fleet engagement. Ship against ship, gun against gun, it was all rendered obsolete. The Yamato, the Musashi, the greatest battleships ever constructed, larger than the Iowa, more heavily armored, boasting bigger guns. But their power was meaningless if they couldn't hit what they couldn't reach. And the Iowa class, they could reach everything. Japanese admirals, once eager for a decisive clash, began actively avoiding engagement. Why risk your precious fleet against an enemy that could wound you, kill you, from beyond your own gun range? This wasn't cowardice, it was a cold, brutal calculation. You cannot possibly win a fight where the enemy can inflict lethal damage, but you are utterly unable to return fire. The Iowa-class battleships effectively created an impenetrable bubble of control, extending 24 miles in every direction. To step inside that bubble meant certain death. To stay outside meant irrelevance. The Japanese, in their terror, christened it the zone of death. American sailors, with their characteristic pragmatism, had a simpler term: maximum effective range. Yet, what's truly astonishing, even more so than the incredible range, was the consistency of these guns. The Iowa could fire those colossal guns day after day, week after week, without losing an ounce of their terrifying accuracy. Other navies' long-range guns would suffer rapid wear, their barrels degrading after just a few hundred shots, their accuracy plummeting. But the Iowa's 16-inch guns. Each barrel was engineered for a remarkable 300 full charge shots, and if needed, they could even be replaced at sea. The ship carried spare barrels, a testament to its design as a self-sustaining, floating fortress, capable of maintaining its killing power indefinitely. Japanese intelligence, desperate for answers, analyzed this capability, their metallurgists studying captured shell fragments, examining their composition. They discovered that the Americans were utilizing advanced steel alloys and manufacturing techniques that the Japanese simply could not replicate. But beyond superior materials, there was an even more fundamental truth: America's industrial might was unmatched. While Japan could painstakingly construct a single battleship, slowly and meticulously, America built 4 Iowa-class battleships in less time than it took Japan to complete one Yamato. And the Iowa-class were faster, more reliable, and devastatingly more accurate. This wasn't just warfare, it was industrial warfare. America's true superweapon wasn't merely the atomic bomb, it was the audacious, unparalleled ability to build anything better than anyone else, and with a speed that utterly overwhelmed its adversaries. March 1945, Okinawa. The final, brutal major naval campaign of the war. The Japanese, in a final act of desperate defiance, launched Operation 10. Gal, the Yamato, the pride of their fleet, on a one-way suicide mission. No air cover. Barely enough fuel to reach Okinawa. The plan was chillingly simple: beach the colossal ship, use it as an unsinkable fortress, let its crew die defending it. American intelligence uncovered the plan, dispatching aircraft carriers to intercept. But ever vigilant, they also positioned the Iowa and other battleships, just in case the Yamato broke through. The Iowa's gun crews prepared, ready for the ultimate confrontation. They had heard the legends of the Yamato, the largest battleship in the world, 18-inch guns, armor impervious to torpedoes. But they were not worried. They had done the math. At 20 miles, the Yamato's shells, arcing high, would strike the Iowa's heavily armored deck, her strongest point. Conversely, the Iowa's shells, arriving on a flatter trajectory, would impact the Yamato's side armor, precisely where she was most vulnerable. The engagement that would have decided, definitively, which ship was superior never happened. American aircraft found the Yamato first, sinking her with a relentless barrage of torpedoes and bombs before she could even reach the American fleet. Some historians call it lucky that the Iowa never had to face the Yamato in a gunnery duel. But American fire control officers, masters of their craft, vehemently disagreed. "We would have won," one officer declared years later, his voice resonating with unwavering confidence. "The Yamato had bigger guns, heavier armor, yes, but we could hit from farther away, and we would have hit first." In naval combat, the first hit wins. Always. The Yamato sank without ever firing a single shot at an American battleship. The USS Iowa, however, endured. She served with unparalleled distinction through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and even the Gulf War. 60 years of unbroken service, a testament to her unmatched design, because no enemy could ever truly match her. Today, the legendary USS Iowa sits as a museum in Los Angeles. You can walk her decks, stand in the shadow of those massive 16-inch guns, touch the cold, silent steel of their barrels. Look closely. You can still see the wear marks, the deep scars from hundreds of shots fired in anger. Each gun barrel is a silent testament to American engineering, to the brilliant minds who designed them, the tireless hands who built them, and the brave men who fired them. And it stands as a stark, enduring reminder to the Japanese sailors who faced them, learning, with bitter certainty, what true range truly means. The Iowa-class battleships were never defeated in combat, never even damaged by enemy fire. Why? Because no enemy could ever get close enough to hurt them before those terrifying guns reached out and touched them first. 24 miles. That was the physical, lethal reach of those guns. But the psychological range, that extended far, far beyond any measurable horizon. Every Japanese naval officer who studied the Iowa class, every admiral who planned operations, had to factor in those guns. They had to ask themselves the haunting question, can we get close enough to fight, or will we perish before we even see them? Usually the answer was the chilling second one. That is the profound, strategic power of overwhelming technological superiority. It doesn't just win battles, it often wins wars without fighting them, simply by making the fight seem utterly unwinnable before it even begins.